interactive as possible. That's why they're live. So help us get to know you. Feel free to tell us your name, where you're tuning in from, and what do you expect to learn from the session. They're live because we want to give you a chance to chat directly with the experts that we bring on. So the last 15 minutes of the webinar will be dedicated to a live Q&A. However, that doesn't limit you. Whenever you see or hear something that resonates with you and you want to ask more about, feel free to post it, and we will try our best to answer as much as possible, hopefully everything. But yeah, today's topic is pretty interesting. I'm excited to hear more about it. We will be chatting about building a high-performing design team from actual scratch. You'll learn how to hire, how to onboard and retain design team, all while aligning it with business goals. So since our guest's team is service-based, we'll also be discussing ways how to balance efficiency, creativity, scalability, all while servicing different clients. Matthew's team works with international companies, with also government entities. So it's a pretty interesting profile of the team here. Very excited to hear more about it. But yeah, without further ado, we're joined by Matthew. He's the design lead at CME, where he has built and scaled a design unit for 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And now it's a team made out of 20 plus people. So yeah, we will be learning a little bit more about his team today. But before we get into that, I would love to get to know you, Matthew, a little bit, and I know everyone else here as well. So first things first, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Definitely excited about this, and hopefully I can share the best parts of what I do. I've been doing this for like 15 years so far. I graduated with a computer science degree. I did some tech work programming for a while, but I knew that like design was there as a passion as well, and it just stars aligned. UX was becoming a thing, tech was becoming bigger, and so I worked myself up from an individual contributor and evangelist for UX in a construction company. We built in-house products for them. And then I started finding myself hiring new people to help, and also like advising startups on their product visions until like I joined CME late 2020. And we formed this team slowly but carefully until like it started scaling with the demand. And as you said, CME is a bit different because it's a professional service, a tech service provider. So it didn't match what I used to do before, but still a brilliant challenge.
And when you joined CME, you told me that there was a need to build up a structured design team. So can you tell us a little bit about how that went? Did you face any challenges in the beginning?
I think the challenge is and remains, like for most of the part, is hiring the proper talent for the right client. It's matchmaking work. So, but in the beginning, what I didn't have was the right exposure to who the clients are. I wasn't on the negotiation table yet. I wasn't in the business meetings yet that decided when and where and how they want the designers to work. But kind of, I knew we needed a senior designer or two to get them started as soon as possible. The challenge was to find the designers that can adapt to whatever the job ends up being on the client side. So I had to do some work asking around team members that work the same client about the premise. Is this a SaaS solution? What type of products are they going to be touching on? What type of management structure do they have? And I took the bet. It worked. I also ended hiring, like the first two designers were friends, so it had the dynamic as well. And yeah, so that's the toughest part of starting a service team.
And can you tell us a little bit about those first talks, how they went? Like, how did you get the buy-in?
Okay, so I was already 10 months at CME working as a senior designer. Like there was no plan to create the team when I entered. There was a need also for a client to do the work. So But like 10 months in, when we hired the first two designers, I felt there's an opportunity here to grow a discipline. And like by the time I was about to approach management, they had approached me like 2 days ahead of me talking to them. So they kind of knew the value, or they saw the impact. They wanted to translate it into some team structure, and that's what happened. But then after that, it was mostly me educating like middle management, team leads about this is the value and this is how we're doing it. Tell us how you can push it further onto clients, because design will definitely change the whole service we offer a client.
And when you got started with hiring, apart from the two friends you started with, what were you looking for in candidates, and what would you say makes a designer a great fit for working across multiple clients?
Yeah, so just to be clear, they weren't my friends. They were friends together. I
Or-
didn't know that. I didn't know that early on. I knew that like uh, really deep into the process of hiring. So it was great chance to have them both. So you were asking me about, okay. I think that the tough part is, can you repeat the question? I kind of lost track of what I was saying because of the
It's
friendships happening. Yeah.
So when you started hiring, what profiles were you looking for?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Look, definitely generalists in the beginning, because I needed people to kind of fit the need of a client, but that's not just what I was looking for, because it's easy to find generalists. It's harder to find curious designers. So the interview process was like, okay, here are some senior profiles. They are generalists based on the experience. In the interview, what I was looking for was basically, can these people challenge me in a good way? Of course, handle a conversation, maybe challenge me on the toolings we're using, just make me feel like they're selling me the value they see in UX, not the value I see. Because I knew that these people are going to be like the evangelists with clients. These are going to carry like the first CME front or wave of design services. As well, in addition to that, I felt like their communication skills and their culture fit should work with CME internally, because we had a lot of lobbying to do in CME to open space for UX. There were already teams existing with engineers. They had their own ways, their own processes. We just needed to plug properly there. And so anybody who can describe, design the value quickly is somebody who definitely like took my attention the most.
So yeah, okay. Generalists with great communication skills for starters. Okay. And apart from that, what would you say really makes a great fit for a designer to work in such a team?
Okay, so that's a good question, because I think there's a thing with service providing that you don't get to lay down and be comfortable about, which is the constantly business changing
Yeah.
on the client side. If you're in an in-house team building a specific product, maybe in 6 months you'll be the master of every nitty-gritty detail. You have BAs at your disposal. You have POs who can cheerlead you through the process. I think designers that work well in a tech service providing environment are designers that can like devour the literature quickly, understand enough information about the business to get started, because they have to get started quickly as well. And they have an inherent sense to organize, because you can't be doing this haphazardly. You have to like keep receipts, track meetings, track notes. Sometimes you're assigned to a client alone. You don't have your lead or your senior with you, or the person that to support you on the daily. So you have to have that structure with you. And you don't want to hand off a project without enough documentation and then end up getting a change request on it, coming back, and you don't understand your work a year later. So there has to be some type of organization or some type of framework with your type of work. So that's definitely what makes them a good match for such job.
Well, that's really important. Like also being able to document everything and to unload a huge amount of information at the beginning. And on that note, and getting them on board, um, what were all the steps you took to onboard them? Now, when it comes to CME, you had people who needed to adapt quickly to your company's culture, but also at the same time, what you said, they needed to start working effectively with clients. So, what does onboarding look like there?
Okay, so with onboarding, usually we use the design buddy trick. So you have a design buddy when you enter. If it's a client's first time outsourcing from us, usually I'm the buddy because I know the client a bit more than anybody else. I've been in the business meetings, I've been seeing their pain points and their requests. I possibly also wrote the job description that we're putting out. So it means I would tag along in the beginning with that designer, like for a month, maybe just understanding, maybe even joining their meetings in the beginning to see if we're getting the information we need. Are we processing it correctly? Are they being logged correctly? So that's definitely one of the most efficient ways. But let's not forget that designers also need to be onboarded by the client themselves. So it kind of splits. The client has to onboard them on everything else. If the Figmas are hosted, if the design files are hosted on our account at CME, then I would take the tour with them. If the client has their own Figma ecosystem or like tool ecosystem, they would go there and get the onboarding they need.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's interesting because when I used to hire for in-house products, it's like designers are on a tricycle the first month. They can drive alone, they're being supported. They get the time actually to get proper onboarding. The reason you find us hiring more seniors in such an environment I am in now is because the clients want them to get up and running from day one. Like it's usually they recognize that they need design late in the process if they don't have enough like design maturity in the organization. So you need that person to join and start working directly. Therefore, they're more like they are on a bicycle than they are on a tricycle. So like I'm holding them up, or the senior with them, the design buddy is holding them up enough to get them moving forward. And then we have weekly check-ins for the first 3 months just to feel like everybody's comfortable in their place. And from there, it takes the normal progression, and I can definitely start seeing like their strengths and adjust accordingly.
As for the weekly check-ins, is that one-on-one with you, or?
I don't start the one-on-ones before a few months because I know they're overwhelmed. That's different. So the first month I see them weekly. It's not like the one-on-one where I do that bi-weekly. And it's more one-on-ones are usually more focused with my team on the career path, let's say. So that's already something I would have discussed with the candidate on the call while I interviewed them. So that person would have gave me a good idea of what they want to do in their career. The first 3 months is purely focused on like a 30-minute call every week, just to make sure like what to deliver this week. How do you see the client? Is there anything we can help improve the relationship together? So that's how it goes. And then we shift onto different formats of meetings later.
Okay. And so a buddy system works well in the beginning. They get all the support, and then they're shipped off to do their work with check-ins. And do you use any, apart from that, do you use any other frameworks, tools, or strategies that have helped make that process easier?
Look, a good strategy is try to come to the office in the beginning and get to meet your team because nothing makes it easier when you know people, you know their backstories in person. But what does help some designers, and other designers unfortunately don't get it sometimes, is if the client already has a team with CME, like let's say it consists of engineers, a QA, a PM, these team members are already going to work on the daily with the designer more than I would be working with that designer on the daily. So it's more important for me that he meets the team that he's going to work with for on the long run. So as a culture in CME and as like a hybrid workspace, that's why we encourage them, especially at the beginning, that interact with the people you're going to go home and talk to like most of the time you're here. And it works. There's no specific tool. Like if you're thinking about software. No, there's no software. It's basically all done on Teams and just a lot of meetings. And it has to change between clients and some clients. And I said, there are really some clients where we started having only designers assigned to them. There's no other person from CME assigned in other different expertise. They have it a bit harder, but in that case, the client does most of the heavy lifting, integrating into culture and doing the job. Yeah.
Great, great note that I want to explore a little bit more, and that is culture in the team. So, you told me that you have designers who work on one project for a couple of years on a big project, or you have designers who are switching multiple clients for a short period of time. How do you maintain a strong internal culture and like a sense of belonging for your team members?
Oh, it's a challenge. I don't think we'll ever be as good as like having it in an in-house firm, but I can say we did a great job, everyone in the team, because it's team effort. In the beginning, when the team was smaller, we used to have like monthly meetings where we like spent time meeting each other over Teams and discussing our backgrounds. And like as it became, because I told you we were more generalists in the beginning, but with time, I got to hire more specialists, or at least people from different backgrounds. Like not everybody comes from computer science into UX. People come from graphic designer, sometimes psychology. So there, it switched from being more of like a candid meetup to like, hey, prepare a presentation about accessibility. Let's get on a call and open our cameras and make sure everybody's talking about. So we had, and we still have like recurring meetings. Two is, I think, I do encourage the team to volunteer when they have time or between client shifts, because sometimes you get put on the bench for a bit until you move to your next client, is to work with other designers in the team for a while. Even if they're never going to work with the designer again, they're going to understand the DNA of what's happening. And for a quarter, the second year I had the unit up, we had an even number of designers. So it's excellent time to do pair ups. So for a quarter, you choose one designer, you pair up with them as a designer, and 15 minutes, he tells you what he's doing. He takes your opinion. The second 15 minutes, you switch up, you get to see what they're doing. And this makes the worldview of CME smaller, because you're starting to meet, oh, okay, I have another client in the company that does mobile. I thought the whole company was SaaS solutions, like we were only outsourcing to. So it kind of defines the world you're in, and it's a conversation starter. So there's a combination of these, not gonna say tricks, but techniques that help you feel like you belong to a base. But from my side, as a design lead and any product manager or anybody like in a management position, I think nothing beats like setting goals and just like conveying what's happening at management, telling them, like, if we got a good quote from the CEO, I can transfer that to the team, make sure they understand that where we belong is important, what the goal we're getting to is relevant, and how we plug into the bigger system of how we help the design team drive profit in the company. That's one of the goals, of course.
Cool. I mean, great answer. Great two frameworks. We have people who are going to be pairing up. I love the fact that you also mentioned that they like switch and talk every single week for 15 minutes. Is that something that they do now, like on their own without any pinging or reminding? Is that like integrated into the culture already?
Yeah, it is actually. I think that's a reason why I didn't repeat it that frequently. Like we finished the quarter and I felt there was already momentum for them to start jumping into each other's chat. Now I hear about their pairings after they happen. Like I didn't want to bother you, so I called X and we kind of solved this issue I was facing in my design file, or like something I needed to research. Because they know their specialties, they know each other's PowerPoints now. And also, like when people take certifications, I make sure that it's broadcasted within the unit. Like this guy finally took color theory, let's say, or this guy understands accessibility better now. And Yeah, I'm proud because like they don't have to go through me. This is less work for me, but also they get a different perspective from teammates that otherwise would have had their knowledge just like encapsulated for one goal.
Yeah. And it's, a very simple, easy way to make friends within the company as well. Like, especially if you're the only designer working for one, one client, one company, one project,
True.
they need to get to know the rest as well.
Yep.
Cool. And speaking of your team and how it grew over time, I'm sure that there were some maybe trouble or issues with ensuring design consistency, like across multiple projects. Um, how did you deal with that? How did you make it balance out, especially like efficiency plus creativity? I think it's important for designers. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for the first part, like it took us some time, but we eventually like reached a place where we have like a repository with design system files or kits or like common materials that the designers can pick out from and start. As I said earlier, sometimes they have to get up and running when they get contracted with new clients. So that was kind of vital, and I saw it coming into shape from the very beginning. I think what type of designers would I advise people hiring? Definitely, some of those designers should be Gen Zers. They're very good with tools. So that مثلا, for example, Uxcel is a tool that I learned from one of the Gen Zs in the team because they're always searching for the next best thing and the tools, and I'm too focused on leadership and management. So for tooling, I depend on team members to pull those in. And between efficiency and creativity, it's really comes down to the person themselves handling the client. So the designer has to slow the client down once they get their trust and start explaining to them, this is what the design sprint is, this is how we plug into the agile development framework if that's what the client is using. And first you get the trust, then you relay and educate the value, and eventually you hope that the client says, okay, I understand that this design needs to take some time to get the creativity out.
Mm-hmm.
And as you push creative work, you could still push like utility work. You can still do cleanups, you can still do audits with the developers. That's just time churning. But thus you're also going to buy time to do the creative work, and this is what's important for us. Not all the clients value, like not all the clients work requires often time to be creative. Sometimes they're upgrading a system that already exists and you're changing a theme or something. But definitely we aim, or I aim with the team, to have like a script ready for each situation that pushes, take a breath, let's do this together, because we want to show the success from our side as well. This is the driver for a designer to stay motivated. And I think for the older generation and the team, for people, the oldest people with me, and then they mastered this to the extent where they already joined other newcomers and help them explain the value or the speed or the process we take in the team to clients.
Great. I mean, good points. I don't have any follow-ups on this. Pretty clear. So, wanted to jump a little bit, maybe backtrack a little bit. You mentioned that now, when the onboarding is over, you don't have such weekly check-ins with them, but do you have any performance check-ins, any feedback loops, or how do you approach designers development?
Yeah, so after you've onboarded and crossed probation and like you're set for life with CME, hopefully. Um, so basically you're gonna get one-on-ones with me every 2 weeks. And this is something me and another lead in the company figured out we're gonna have to do this eventually, because I could easily focus on the lone wolf or on the person who's not performing well and like
Mhm.
kind of ignore the people who are performing well. But the one-on-ones every 2 weeks kind of level off the ground. So at least I'm seeing you 15 minutes every 2 weeks. And if you need more time, I'm there to help. That's my job. And in those 2 weeks, they get a good idea uh, of what I'm expecting overall, and also about what they expect of me in terms of their career growth. So they get to ask me a lot of questions, and I tried not to make it about their task list, but more about um, how we can shift the career, because it's hard if you're only doing one thing with the client. How can you learn something else? So we do that, but mainly AllCME shares a process where, like, next month we get to do self-evaluations. The designers write down their missions, and for me, writing down your missions or writing down 3 big things you did this year is important, because I encourage them to write their challenges. Like, if a mission comes by me and there were no challenges, I pretty much know that I need to probe them more. They have to be, they're used to it now. They show that they're vulnerable. It's not about failing, but also to show me about if do they recognize they failed somewhere, and are they planning to improve it. And once they get that, and we sit together in May, I get to like, let's say, refresh what I have in the pipeline for them next year, realign the vision, and then the following one-on-ones cascade and like give um, give positive feedback for whatever we gathered from the negatives during evaluation period. So I would say the annual and the one-on-ones are important to keep track. And finally, second year in the design unit, it took more time than I expected it to, but I designed the career path for the unit. We didn't have like a career path for designers. I felt the more I researched, the more I learned. I ended up even having to buy some resources to check like other career paths in big companies, and like make it work for a tech providing environment. And in addition to that, the list of competencies we created for the career path, they also have a parallel courses to take, or like upskilling, let's say, track they need to take per level. So it's like, I would say that's the North Star. Like, if you don't know what to do, go check your upskilling list. You're possibly slacking somewhere. If you finish that, why don't you start looking for the level after it? What can you like start checking off the list? Yeah.
So do they track their own skill growth by themselves, or how do you do that?
I would say they don't. They reflect on it in April when they do their self-assessment. So they get the same competencies. I will be assessing them on them in May. They will get to assess themselves on it in April. So they understand the skills. Okay, so is it design tooling? Is it design research? Is it communication? Is it business understanding? Is it creativity? So those are like high level competencies. I'm sure everybody knows where they stand. It's just that at least 1 year they're accountable for where they stand at that chapter. But now with like some tools, for example, Uxcel skill graph or my personal documents internally, I have a good idea of not only like how they skill, but how they compare together. So yeah.
So you can compare also their growth towards like others in the team. And
Yeah.
you said something that really stuck with me, and that's like, it's easy to focus on the ones that are not maybe performing well. So how do you ensure that the ones that are performing well get that appraisal and get a good word in, especially, mentioning the fact again that most of their time during the day is spent on client work.
Hmm. It also boils down to their two things, actually, not just their one-on-one, because their one-on-one is not always about solving problems. It's also about sharing what's going right and how we can map it. If I see there's an opportunity for them to get recognized even beyond the call, like in the team or the company, word will spread. But I think the most effective way, and it's for me, it's the laziest way, but it's the most giving, is that if I listen and get feedback from within the teams that are working with them that they're doing great. So I have random people stopping me sometimes and like, this designer is doing excellent. we never saw this type of design work before. And those I do take remarks from, and I do bring it back onto the table, because I think every manager feels like this is the type of feedback you want to get. It's a self-testament.
Yeah.
It's a testament from team members. But I think even the good performers understand that as a team, some time has to be spent lifting up the people that might be underperforming. So it's a good testament when I see some of the good performers giving back to the underperformers. Like if they have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they can randomly jump on a call, check in on something they got asked about a week ago. And of course, like if you're a senior wanting to become a lead, that's going to fare back well into your evaluation, because you're starting to show that you're proactive towards strengthening the whole, not just yourself.
Good point. And we talked a little bit about their upskilling and their continuous learning. It's important for their performance review annual, but how do you keep up, and how do you make it continuous over the year and not just bunched up in a month or two before the performance review?
They should be writing their missions up during the year. They shouldn't wait like 1 month before April to start putting it up. And this ideal scenario, I will be seeing their missions posted because I get emails and I start to read them early on. So let's say in November you finished a 2-month project. There's still like 5 months of evaluation. I can, if I see the mission posted, the challenge is posted, I can get on a meeting on the spot. Doesn't have to be one-on-one, and try to dissect the progress. That's why I even gave them a head start this year, like a reminder in the beginning of March that like evaluations are coming up. It's good to start writing your missions. It gives me more time to like try to feed over it a bit, because it's going to factor into how I understand you well. I think also it's for me, because I'm not in the design client room the whole time. Sometimes I'm there in the beginning, or if there's a conflict that needs to be resolved, or if I need to hire somebody new to the team. A good approach would be like to role play scenarios between what's happening with the client and them. So if you have a conflict, or if there's an idea that's tough to share with the client, I could tell them like, can you say it to me as if you were saying it to the client? It gives me a good insight about how they're handling their internal calls with their clients, their back calls. And that really funnels back into their career path. So if I feel there's weaknesses some places, I can advise them to start with the course on communication before like they head on to whatever Figma course, let's say, or design systems course. So yeah, it's not all. I wouldn't lie. Usually, of course, most of the companies get too busy around evaluation season, but they are very much encouraged to do it outside that period. And the framework exists for that.
So they're also like being given a nudge on time.
Yes.
And good. And before I ask a few more questions, I just
Sure.
wanted to remind everyone that we do have a live Q&A. So if you have any questions for Matthew on how to, on whatever we spoke about until now, or if you have any questions or any advice that you need about managing your own team, feel free to post it even now. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to ask you when it comes to like designers who work in different for different clients and for different client projects, one of the challenges that I've seen happen is that they get fed up with the same template, the same framework that they need to apply over and over again, and that kind of limits their creativity right there, and it limits maybe it makes their days kind of the same. Do you have that problem in your team, and what's your approach if you do?
It has shown up before. It's not like a recurring problem, but it has. Some of the designers in the team are residents with some of the designers in team are residents with specific clients. By resident, I mean they spend at least 1 year with that specific client. So it becomes a long-term commitment to the extent where they feel their identity is as matched with CME as it was this company. Maybe even 2 years. I have people since I've joined, they've been with one client. So, and then you have the people who shift and move around and do like the juggle. For the people who are residents, they are the most likely the people who might nag down the road that or complain that, look, I feel there's a routine. But it's not only the fact that they are residents. Usually there's another layer over that, is that either the client has reached a place where like design is too automated, they're not interested in expanding, or that their direct supervisor doesn't recognize that like they can do something better inside the team, or give power to the designer inside their team to like fight for a better position. So it's like it becomes more of a political thing. In the very few cases that's happened, there's two things that I can do here. One, I can remind them that they do get the benefit of being with the client for a while, because it gives them the benefit of doing the design process end to end. So when I have other designers moving every 3 to 6 months between one client to a client, they might only see one piece of the service, like they're only doing UI, or they've only been contracted to test, or maybe only to draw some personas. So those might be stuck and they don't see their babies grow. Like they feed the baby 1-2 months and they let it go. And then they shift to another 8-year-old. So one is to frame it to them that what we need to do with that client is to make sure that he's exhausting every possible skill you have for his own benefit. In some cases, I might end up talking to the client or somebody else, like whoever it is, like that, maybe the technical project manager or the account manager, to bring the service forward. Like they're not going to be paying us extra. The person already knows the skills and he sees the potential. Why don't we reframe it X? If I'm the person discussing it with the client, in some places I've been successful to push some changes. And I think one of the things that happened last year was finally we convinced a client to go from XD to Figma. And it took some time because they're resistant to technology. Basically, that's not the problem, but they have a lot of files they need to shift. So I had to tag along with the designer to lobby for it, plus to show value. So it kind of happens, but it ends up being just a period of feeling down, but then like sparking it into a new venture with the client. Yeah.
Okay, and I think it's a valid point that you said that sometimes you also like need to jump in and advocate for more, for doing more.
Yes.
Definitely. And okay, that kind of like gives an idea what you can do when a designer gets into a routine and gets fed up with doing the same thing over and over again. And one last question from me as we head into the live Q&A is, for those leaders who are working with designers who are, or maybe who are just starting their teams right now, who want to build their team, do you have one piece of advice for them for starting out?
I think probably to track skills as early as possible. For me, I was too busy, of course, hiring. And as we said in the beginning, hiring takes time. But even if it was just a simple Excel sheet where like you can track weekly or monthly changes in somebody's skills, it's going to help you grow the team, because you're going to have always a good umbrella view of where the gaps are on the group level, as well as where the gaps are on the individual side. And I don't know, maybe a second piece of advice is that you don't have to rush to build a team of full-timers instantly. If you feel like you need to outsource a specific skill like motion design for somebody for a month to help you save budget, and also to help me as a lead learn about where this potential role can plug in the future before I hire them full-time. So why not? Because I see this recurring sometimes, like leads want to make everything in-house as quick as possible. but they end up like not leveraging the role perfectly, or there are some issues that can be solved definitely with that. Yeah.
So track progress early and track skills early.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And yeah, I said it was my last question, but it's not.
Go
On
ahead.
another side, from perspective of those who want to work, designers who want to work in a service-based team, what is the one key skill, if you could now pick out one for them, that they should work on so that they can be successful and get the job in the industry?
In a service-based team, um, they really have to consider that anything they hear in a call with the client doesn't mean it is not always right or what should be done. I've heard this over and over again with not just CME but other service providing companies that I know. It's like clients are hiring you or putting their trust in CME because you are the expert. So let yourself be heard. Sometimes people get it mixed up that by challenging the client, it might seem like they're either like being pushy or like pushing the power backward,
Mm-hmm.
and they get scared from being escalated maybe back to me or back to the company. But really the right skill of communication, the good skill of negotiation can get you a long way, because once you start giving your opinion without offending the client and then showing the value that your opinion and pushback have worked in favor, that's what makes a good service provider priceless. So whereas if you were working in an in-house company, you are shielded a lot from being yourself and maybe not needing to push back. That the premise of an in-house product is to push back. You have the brainstorming sessions, you have the same boss at sometimes, right? So people who are, and I seen clients enjoy the most, or designers they keep requesting on their teams, are designers that can uh, quote unquote shut them up on the call, tell them, look, no, you're thinking completely incorrect. This is how we should do it, and trust me for that. And then they actually show it in action.
Good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. So negotiation and actually pushing back on the client as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for the whole discussion with me. I do see we have a question here, so
Yes.
um, it's time for a Q&A. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to post it now. But we'll start with Parin. Hi, Parin. How are you doing? Not sure if this has already been discussed. Do you have any tips for helping new employees understand the process, culture, and know key stakeholders?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it, but I'm happy to maybe add a bit on this as well. So uh, I think there's a lot. I thought that there was a lot that I can do as a design lead, but apparently HR plays a big role in getting you into the process of a state service provider company, because they even see the problems on a higher level than I do. So if you have a good say and good connection to HR, there should be a career coach or a career guide, a proper onboarding format from the HR side, which we have developed at CME as well. The more tactile, if you're a lead, and I think you might be either that or managing, um, I do prefer to like, there's a one instance where somebody asked me, like, tell me more about the culture. And by telling them what we did last year in the company and like splitting it into, these were the goals of the unit, this is what we were able to achieve. These were the activities of the company. Here are some pictures of what we did. Like we celebrated the annual CME anniversary. We did that and this. And for stakeholders, yes, I would hugely encourage that when you open the call for the first time with that person, open the org chart, whether you're in Teams. I don't know if other tools have an org chart. Show them who you're reporting to and what the value of each person you're reporting to is, so that they know their skip leads, because it gives them a better idea of like the bigger compass of the
Mm.
team. And then if for any reason in the future they feel like they need to head and ask people more questions or probe them on more questions, they know where to go. Finally, although I know people don't really like coming to the office, it's highly advised in the beginning that they do come. I found that there were some fights or some disputes on teams that were solved by just showing up in person, because sometimes chatting can be misleading. And if you come in person, you can see that this colleague doesn't really mean in bad intention. Maybe they're just not communicating the best way possible.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I gave extra tips for Perrin. Yeah.
Thank you. Perrin, if you have a follow-up question, feel free to ask. Another question that we have is from IO. Please, what is the most effective way to track the progress and development of my team members as individual designers and as a team in general?
Yeah. There's a lot of resources out there. I don't remember the author name, but there's a book called Senior Product Design or Senior Product Designer. It has an orange cover. It's an excellent insights on. I used that. I leveraged that when I was creating the career path. But for like first on the individual level of a designer, how do you track their progress and development? I guess try to bucket what you see a designer should be doing ideally in your company. So if you had an all-star designer in your team, how would that designer look like? Although there is a blueprint on the internet of how experienced designer would function in a team, it does vary between company and company because the goal of having that designer is different. Are you early stage startup or are you a mature company? And then bucket them one into a competency framework. So as I just said, we have one group to discuss the tooling skills, and then another tool to discuss how good they are with user research. The third group talks purely about visual design. And then you create indicators which within each competency. So within the visual design competency, I can look at an indicator that discusses, for example, color pairing or how good they are with, let's say, hierarchy, which is a visual design thing. And then I will start tracking them as I go for individuals and try to fill that matrix. That's why I said, what's the advice starting the team is tracking the skills as quick as possible. If you don't have your custom template ready, get a template online. There's a lot, and start trying to fill the metrics as if you were playing chess. For the team in general, it's a very interesting question. 2 years ago, I guess it has been 2 years, I created the survey and we sent it around the company. How many designers have you worked out so far with? Do you understand the value that these designers are bringing to the clients you work with? If you were left alone with the designer, can you advise them, for example, what to do next? So the survey I sent out to the company kind of helped me gauge the perception of everybody else outside design about design, and it helped drive the goals of the year that followed. Like, do I want to increase the number of designers in the team, or do I want to increase their exposure because they're not relaying the value of design yet enough to the people who fill the survey? So I think to get a general progress and development direction, you need to understand what other people think about your team, whether that's a survey or sitting with clients, gathering feedbacks, testimonials. You can all bring that back and factor it into your team's growth.
Great advice, and thank you, Ayo, for the question.
Sure.
So we have a few more. Sorry, LinkedIn users, your names will not appear here, but do you give your employees room for career growth and personal development?
Yes, I do. It is a topic that's a bit hard to push. Clients deserve to have all their time dedicated to them. If you're contracted for 9 hours, you have to work the 9 hours with clients. They really they're paying for that, and they really deserve that. Now, how do we keep room for that? If there's downtime between clients, I do remind people to head in and start checking off the courses and their career growth. But the most valuable thing I've found is align their passion with what they should do next in terms of career growth, upskilling. What's the next course you should take? Because it's very easy for you to learn something that you have a knack for or you have passion towards. So if I feel like you're somebody that continuously comes back to working on a hierarchy of a layout, maybe I can take you to an advanced level of hierarchy that you can later bring back into the team. And you're more willing to do this in your free time if you like it. So as a designer, you still have to give yourself some time, downtime off the record, and help yourself build yourself. I think there's one way I'm still working on now. I didn't say it before because I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to schedule a 30-minute slot every end of day Friday for my entire team. And we're all going to be invited to that on the calendar. But it's technically not a meeting. It's just a reminder that says, start learning now. And in that 30 minutes, everybody's going to be learning because they're going to see it pop on their laptop as if it was a meeting. And if you're in the flow after 30 minutes and the topic's interesting, you're most likely going to spend some time on the same sprint or on the weekend continuing to learn about it. If you find it valuable, but you stop having time to learn it, you can get on a meeting with somebody in the team that has it. It takes less time and they can give you the top level, let's say, pointers. And then I'll be sure to test them on this as we go down the road and reach evaluation.
I love the Friday 30 minutes before and just a reminder, like, get some studying, learning done. That's really great.
Yeah, because we forget that we should. Half of it is we usually forget, we get too swamped with client requests. So why not have it logged as if it was a client meeting?
Really good. Really good. Thank you. And thank you for the question. 2 more questions and I think we're done. But this is, I believe, from one of your team members. If you have the chance to restart the process of creating your team, would you have done something differently?
In addition to maybe tracking the skills, maybe I would have done an initial survey for the whole company about I didn't have that. I didn't know how design was positioned in the company before I started. So it would have been good to do a nationwide survey in the beginning and try to understand the current status because I knew that we were on the NNG scale of maturity for design and organization. We were very limited. But it could have gave me more idea of why we're limited. And then I could have lobbied for that with management to get there straighter. Because what ended up happening is that I was reacting to some things after where I could have been maybe proactive if I knew they existed in terms of their mentality about design, why they think it shouldn't be done. Did we have some people who were not advocating for this team and could we help them switch their minds? I think, yeah, I would have gauged the waters there.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you for the question. It's a really great question. I wish I asked it. And the last question from the audience today, Nizar says, what advice would you give to someone with no design experience who's interested in entering the field?
Start. So start, what I mean is start watching people doing the craft. There's a lot on YouTube. And then there's also a free license for Figma. Start copying the work with any like creative work you do, painting. If you go to paint outside, there's a lot of shops with wine and they make it fun to draw painting because maybe 10% of those people who are going to paint become painters themselves. It's the same thing with UX. It's too wide of a field for me to sit down and explain it all to you in one session in a coffee shop. The best way to do it is to see other people actually design a landing screen, for example, and then try to see which part of that process resonates with you the most, and then start there. ask me or ask somebody else in the field that's just a bit ahead of you, like where can I go probe a bit more about colors, or when can I probe a bit about how he researched the idea to get there. And we don't have a lot of university tracks for UX. I've seen some certificates pop up, but it would be good to look for tools that teach UX and that like have a low boundary of entry.
So start.
There's one more question.
Yeah, one more
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
I just wanted to
Recap.
So
Yeah.
start designing, replicate what's already being done, and look for resources to learn. Right.
Yes. So.
Thank you. Yeah. And as you saw, we have one more question from Xenia. I work in an agency without clear development and KPI measurements, and I would like to offer my leaders a more structured development. Where do you think I should start from?
Check energy maturity. Yeah, I don't know if you have a UX team, but if you do, go to NMG and look for UX maturity in an organization. They have a great breakdown for the steps of how UX matures in an organization. And in addition to the article they give, they actually have a test you can take online. They ask you questions about your company and where it stands, and you can get a grade. You get actually a position on the scale. Let's say you have limited, you work in a limited design enterprise, therefore it's haphazard, there's no dedicated team members. And then you can go probe how to move from limited to structured, for example. You can use ChatGPT. You will get a list of things to move that needle forward. And then after you exercise those changes in a year or in a period of time that you decide, you can repeat the quiz. But I found something important, because you are looking to talk to leaders about this, is discuss or present that scale to them from the beginning. Tell them, I'm going to use the scale to measure UX maturity in the company. I'm going to share the questions with you. I'd be happy if you can go over them. I can present them to you. But like this is the major reference for what we're going to do. At least let's put KPIs to drive for these first. But I think with time, once they're convinced with that scale, you can move into more business oriented KPIs or OKRs and check like how much design is being contracted by your company. If CME was contracted for engineering, QA, PM, and design, where did the design service rank in terms of impression on the client? Like, did they call us again in a year and ask only for design? Maybe we're doing something right that other teams aren't. So and trust me, there's one more thing here. I hope my boss is not watching, but you do have to do much of the selling. So there's a lot of times where you have to go up to your CEO, even if he doesn't ask you how's the team going. You have to bring forward some numbers or some of this maturity topic in front of them, and just keep them in the loop, keep them fresh on what's happening internally.
Great advice, actually. I like the last bits of it. Thank you, Xenia, also for your question. Matthew, I think that's all for today and all for the Q&A. We're also out of time, so I wanted to thank you for joining me today. I hope this was a fun session for you as well, as it was
really fun
for everyone. Everyone else who joined us live, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you got some really great insights from here. You will get the recording, so you can rewatch it at any time. Anytime. You can also check our past episodes on YouTube. If you have any other questions for Matthew, I will drop his link to his profile in the follow-up email, so you can always reach out there as well. Matthew, is there anything else you wanted to say before we say our goodbyes to everyone?
No, I just want to tell you, great job. You pulled out the right answers. I don't think I had all that in me yet, but you highlighted a few good points. And so good luck if anybody wants to reach out. I think you'll get the profile soon. Good luck. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I had a lovely time. Would love to have you on some other time as well, discussing other topics. But
Thanks.
until then, thank you, everyone. See you next time. And thank you, Matthew. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.